Can you see that? That's a vulture. So all of these animals, even the ones we don't pay attention to, are literally just responding to their environment. You know, whether you have an overgrowth of or if you have all this broomweed that comes up early in the season, actually, and it just kind of takes over. And you say, why is this happening? Well, it's responding to its environment. So even our animals that we actually pay attention to, these two sitting in the shade, are literally just, they're responding. Nobody taught them to go sit in the shade. They are responding to their environment. They said, it's hot out there, it's cooler here where I'm in the shade. Even Poppy up the road a little ways is sitting in the shade because it's not cold out. And these plants are responding to that in the same manner. So they are growing, they're pulling water from wherever they can. The moisture in the soil is, still there from a rain a couple of weeks ago, but they're still holding out. They're still producing lots of chlorophyll, which we need. That's that. I love that Joel Salatin talks about it as the solar panels of the earth. What these plants are doing is taking the sun's energy and producing energy in themselves and in the soil. And when that happens, everything grows better. The animals that eat them get better. The animals that eat those animals get better on up the food chain. I think maybe that's something we need to talk about, a response to the environment. So when these plants have a response to their environment because there's a chemical or something ends up in the soil and they take it up in their roots and in their systems, whatever that is travels all the way through the food chain. So for instance, when we medicate an animal and it becomes part of that food chain, that medication travels all the way up the food chain. It doesn't go away. It doesn't just magically disappear. We know from many studies that have been done years and years ago that, ivermectin is curing everything. Well, it is, because it's great at taking care of things that have no spine. It knocks them out. They use it on your fruits and vegetables because it kills a lot of the bugs and the bacteria. The only problem is it also kills dung beetles. So those beetles that go around and, harvest the poop that came out of these guys. So if you're treating your animals with ivermectin, you don't want to leave your poop out because you're killing dung beetles who process that poop into nutrients for the plants. And then the plants, so you can see we mowed, and then the plants process that ivermectin. I remember, this has been a while ago, sweet potatoes grown with horse manure fertilizer outproduced any other sweet potatoes in the same county. And the reason that happened was that the horses had been dewormed with ivermectin, and that ivermectin remained in their poop and traveled all the way up the food chain, reducing the bacteria and the things that might cause the sweet potatoes to have blemishes or blotches or abnormalities. And then there you have it. You end up with ivermectin all the way up the food chain. Here you'll see there's some horse manure in the dirt that's just decomposing, and those horses are doing their job. They are helping. So while we mowed to help break down some of the plant material, the plants are doing their job, and they are breaking down as naturally happens. And as they break down, they put nutrients back into the soil, and that will change the plants that come out of the soil next year, maybe later this fall. And so, if you ever noticed it, it doesn't take chemicals to change the plant life on the earth, in your yard. Sometimes it just means you have to mow. And mowing changes the mineral content in the soil. And so then it can make it, more preferential for, say, grasses. And these grasses will then take over. And as we mow, we're also knocking down all these are tiny little oak trees that are trying to sprout out from the roots of this plant, of this oak tree. And they will continue around the circle as long as we don't keep it mowed. So those guys, we're responding to our environment, and these animals and plants are all having the response to their environment at the same time. Like, you can't make one thing have a response and not affect another, because it comes up that whole food chain. And to try to say we can break the food chain by feeding our dogs plants, and then we won't have dogs. Those dogs that we are making them vegetarians are missing some really essential fatty acids. Things that make their muscles, things that make their skin, things that make their bones, things that make their organs function. It's really hard to break that food chain, because that really and truly is like a law of physics. We just come up that food chain. If you turn your dogs out, your vegetarian dog is still going to go eat a rabbit or a squirrel, or they're going to eat other things that are closer to their natural needs, like things that appear to be organs, your underwear, your tampons, all those things. Because they need those things in their diet. They need organ meats. They need actual animal proteins. If you're a veterinarian or a chiropractor who has not added animal chiropractic to your practice yet, but you would like to be able to help those animals respond as best they can to their environment, find us today at animalchiropracticeducation.com.